Madam Clerk, roll call.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. Mayor Hill is excused tonight. Vice Mayor Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember McPartland.
Here.
And Councilmember Nunn.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, under proclamations and awards, Councilman Ed Dodd will do the first proclamation. Councilman Dodd. Okay.
I think I'm going to do the first one and the second one, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think we have two recipients for this, for the Construction Week proclamation. Are they here? And you have to bear with me because he just told me I was going to do this and I haven't read these yet, so. Okay. This is for Construction Week, September 17th through the 21st, 2022.
Constitution.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me move the yellow tag.
There's a yellow sticker over it.
It's Constitution Week. And there are people who want us to construct a new Constitution, but we're not going to. Okay, whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper, according to officially recognize this magnificent document, its memorial anniversary, and the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issue of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating the week in which September 17th falls as the Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Fred Jones, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Vice Mayor of the City of Sebastian, Florida, do hereby proclaim September 17 through 23, 2022 as Constitution Week in the City of Sebastian, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideas and frames of the Constitution held in 1787 by the vigilante protecting the freedoms guaranteed us through this guardian of our liberties. Remember that lost rights may never be regained, and that's an important thing worth repeating. Lost rights may never be regained. In witness thereof, I set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Sebastian to be affixed this 13th day of September 2023. Before I let you speak a little bit, I just want people to realize that we have a very nice exhibit in the hallway in City Hall. If anyone would like to go over and see that, we have constitutional documents and other things there that might be worth looking at. So, okay, it's like.
Thank you. On behalf of the Pelican Island chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, I would like to thank you for presenting us with this Constitution Week proclamation. Constitution Week began in 1955 when the DAR petitioned Congress to set aside September 13th through 23rd annually to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was adopted by Congress and signed into law on August 2nd, 1956 by President Eisenhower. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me give you these proclamations, and if you'd like some pictures taken, we can do that. Okay. There's two copies there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Okay, this is a proclamation for the National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, which is September 2022. Is there someone here to accept this proclamation? Hi, how are you? All right. Whereas each year, tens of thousands of children face the battle of cancer with incredible bravery and inspiring hope. And whereas, while progress against some childhood cancer has been made, the cure rate for many forms remains less than 50%, and the incidence increasing at a rapid pace. Whereas the city recognizes the devastating impact that this disease has on members of our community and the importance of increasing research on childhood cancer, and whereas the city also understands the burdens that are shared by countless dedicated healthcare professionals, organizations, charities, and patient advocacy groups which support patients and families by offering advice, encouragement, hope, and financial assistance, and work tirelessly to lift the spirits of children suffering from cancer. Therefore, I, Fred Jones, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Vice Mayor of the Sebastian, do hereby proclaim the month of September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Sebastian to be affixed this 13th day of September 2022. Hi, would you like to say something?
Sure. My name is Jessica. I'm an advocate for pediatric cancer. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here and for the acknowledgement. It means a lot. Hopefully down the road we can have more treatment options and possibly cures for pediatric cancer. So thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, if I could have Sherry, Maureen, and Tristan come up from the Treasure Coast Food Bank. How are we doing? Awesome. We have a proclamation declaring Hunger Action Month in Sebastian, Florida for September of 2022. Whereas hunger and poverty remain issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Florida and the city of Sebastian, with 54,958 children and adults in Indian River County, now are categorized as food insecure. And whereas the city of Sebastian is committed to working with the Treasure Coast Food Bank and mobilizing people about the role and importance of food banks and other hunger relief organizations in addressing hunger, bringing attention to the need, and devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. And whereas food banks and hunger relief organizations across the country, including the Treasure Coast Food Bank, have coordinated Hunger Action Day on September 23rd, 2022 to shed light on this important issue and encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in our local community. Now, therefore, Fred Jones, by virtue of his authority vested as Vice Mayor of Sebastian, do hereby proclaim September as Hunger Action Month and call this observance to the attention of our residents. In witness of that, he has set his hand and caused seal on the seal of City of Sebastian on this 13th day of September 2022.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Sherry Siegfried. I am Director of Client Services for the Treasure Coast Food Bank. I am joined tonight by our volunteers, Ms. Maureen Pringle and Tristan. On behalf of our President and CEO, Judy Cruz, our dedicated staff and Board of Directors, I would like to thank you for proclaiming September Hunger Action Month.
As a member of the Feeding America network of food banks, the Treasure Coast Food Bank is leading the fight against hunger in our community by securing millions of meals and providing them to people facing hunger. We are proud to partner with more than 300 local food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other emergency food providers throughout Indian River, St. Lucie, Martin, and Okeechobee counties. Throughout the month of September, the Treasure Coast Food Bank will be hosting many events that include our Outlaugh Hunger Comedy Show, the second annual Outrun Hunger 5K. For more information on all of these events, please visit our website at stophunger.org/HAM. Thank you.
Thank you again for your continued support in the fight against hunger.
All right, thank you guys so much. The next thing we will go into is the Citizens Engagement Survey. Would Mr. David Harwood please come forward and present?
Good evening. I'm Dave Herwood, president of Baldridge Group. We're a national consulting firm specializing in strategic planning and resident and customer satisfaction surveys for public organizations. Today it's my pleasure to present you your 2022 Community Engagement Survey. I want to quickly review the objectives, the survey design, and of course, share with you your amazing results. So Paul, I think it was back in January, February, you first started talking about the benefit of conducting a community-wide survey as input to your strategic planning process. So through that, we designed it, and at the end, we had 6 key objectives. First was to get resident overall satisfaction with the quality of life. Number 2, what were the key factors that contributed to that quality of life? Number 3, what new businesses would contribute and improve the quality of life? Number 4, the top investments to improve. Number 5, top youth activities that would contribute to the quality of life here in the city. And number 6, identify the top methods the residents seek information regarding City of Sebastian news and events. So with that, we designed the survey, and the city provided us approximately 12,000 residential addresses. And it's important to know this included, the survey went to owners and renters of homes within the community. We take that spreadsheet, and then in the database we assign a random number to each address. Then we sort on that random number, and then we mail out surveys to those residents. So we mailed out approximately 2,000 surveys. It's important to remember that there was no tracking at all for any of these surveys. There was nothing on the envelope, nothing on the survey itself. In the survey, there was a return envelope, postage paid. The surveys, the completed surveys, were returned to City Hall. City staff did not open any of the completed surveys. We personally picked them up, and my staff data entered those. So there was about 713 surveys completed, and we designed the survey to ensure that we had, the typical surveys, 95% confidence, plus or minus 3%. In the survey, we collected some important demographics, and one of the key was where approximately do they live within the city. And here we, in the survey itself, it had the 4 geographic areas. We also collected some data, key demographics about their age group, how long they have lived within the city, do they own or rent, and do they have children live with them within the community. So here's your great results. So the first question was, how would you rate the overall quality of life within the city of Sebastian? And you received an amazing rate of 95.09% of the residents said excellent or good. So you see on the chart that the darker green is the percent that said excellent, so 34, good was 60%, fair 4.77, and one person, or 0.14%, said poor. Now a question I always get is, how is this? I mean, 95 seems very high. Well, it is. We have access to a national database with over 600 community surveys nationwide, and a score of 95% satisfaction is in the top. It's well above the national average. It's a lot to be proud of what you have accomplished within the city. All right, let's dive into some of the data and the other results from the key objectives. The first was residents were asked, what are the top 5 factors? They could pick top 5 that contribute to the quality of life. And we sorted this from highest to lowest. And of course, you can see Brian is very happy. Number 1 is parks. Now, it's interesting as you look at the data, it goes in bands. And so you see parks is way over there. Then you've got water access, the location of the city, public safety. Your residents love the community events that you do. They really enjoy those. Water activities, and then it comes down to another group. Next question is, what types of businesses would you like to see, or establishments, come to the city that would add to the overall quality of life. Well, the residents are really clear. Indoor dining is the top they would like to see, followed by entertainment, water activities, hardware sales, and then clothing and department stores. Next was top 5 investments that the city should make that will contribute to and improve the quality of life. So here, clear top was drainage improvements, followed by roads, parks, police, and traffic safety. One thing I want to add on this, as you do these surveys, you always, learn some more. But at the bottom there, you see boat, trailer parking, and boat parking. We maybe should have combined those as one check, but if you add those up, it comes to 29% of residents said those were the top 5 investments. So if you take that back up, then you're competing with sidewalks and community events as importance to the residents and future investments. The next we ask is, how do you receive information about news and events? So they could pick whatever they want, and this result isn't necessarily frequency, right? But it's where they go to receive information. And nice to see is that the city website, 62% they go there. Facebook, and then blogs, newspaper, other, were the top areas where residents go to seek information about news and events. So you should celebrate your results, 95.09. And I'm here if you have any questions about the survey design, the results, anything I can do to help you.
Council, any questions? None?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is brief announcements. This Wednesday, September the 14th, Sebastian River High School Homecoming Parade will be on Indian River Drive from Main Street to Riverview Park. In the agenda, it shows 5:30 p.m., but I think there's a correction. It should be 6 p.m. Just don't get there at 5:30 or 6 because you won't have a spot. So, next thing up is Sunday, September 18th, Sebastian Elks Lodge Community Fun Day. That will be from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Our Sebastian Police Department Community Outreach Team will be serving snow cones and popcorn. There will be activities, games, and prizes. All right. Council, is there any modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, we have an item to add to the consent agenda from the city clerk for the council travel to the legislative policy committee meetings. So if we can add that as
we will, without objection.
11K. Make it
11K.
11K, thank you.
On the consent agenda. All right, any other additions or modifications? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Next thing on our agenda is a public hearing and second reading ordinance number O-22-07, petition for voluntary annexation, Graves Brothers Company. Council?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I would like to call a motion to table this item as per previous discussion in our council meetings. Was the plan to do that?
You have a second?
Yeah, I second that. Do we have to open it before we can table it?
You need to open the public hearing.
Got to open it first.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to open it first.
That's fine. All right, so we'll go ahead and open that public hearing now.
All right, now.
Now I'd like to make the motion to table this item as per our previous discussions during council
Thank you,
meeting.
sir.
And
Do we have a
the
second?
table is to a time specific, which is December 14th.
December 14th.
December
correct.
14th, yes, sir.
I second that.
So we have that. We have a motion to table this until December the 14th. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Vice Mayor Jones?
No. Call the roll.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is public hearing adoption of tentative millage for fiscal year 22-23. Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, Vice Mayor, the attorney has some items he needs to read into the record before we proceed forward.
Okay.
If that's okay?
City Attorney Manny Anand, can you go ahead and give us the advice?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members. I gave you all pretty much the script, that way you can follow along, but just something I want to read into it so we make sure we cover what the law requires. So this is the first of two millage and budget hearings. Tonight you are dealing with tentative millage and tentative budget. During the next budget hearing set for September 28th, 2022, you will be considering the final millage rate and budget. This hearing is in accordance to Florida Statute 200.065, method of fixing millage. In subsection 2, C as in Charlie, which reads in part, prior to the conclusion of the hearing, the governing body of the taxing authority shall amend the tentative budget as it see fit, adopt the amended tentative budget, recompute its proposed millage rate, and publicly announce the percent, if any, by which the recomputed proposed millage rate exceeds the rollback rate computed pursuant to subsection 1. That percent shall be characterized as the percentage increase in the property tax tentatively adopted by the governing body. Further, in section 2D as in Delta, it reads, within 15 days after the meeting adopting the tentative budget, the taxing authority shall advertise its intent to finally adopt a millage rate and budget. Along with the final hearing date, in no event may the millage rate adopted pursuant to this paragraph exceed the millage rate tentatively adopted pursuant to paragraph C. Further, in subsection 2E as in Echo 1, it indicates that these hearings, the first substantive issue discussed shall be the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate necessary to fund the budget, if any, and the specific purpose for which ad valorem tax revenues are being increased. During such discussion, the governing body shall hear comments regarding the proposed increase and explain the reasons for the proposed increase over the rollback rate. The general public will be allowed to speak and to ask questions prior to the adoption of any measures by the governing body. The governing body shall adopt its tentative and final millage rate prior to adopting its tentative or final budget. So while I'm reading them together here today, the law requires that you must consider the millage rate first before the budget. So tonight you're considering the following two resolutions. Resolution 22-22, a resolution of the City of Sebastian, Engine River County, Florida, adopting a tentative millage of 2.9050 mils for the calendar year 2022, providing for conflict, providing for a scrivener's error, and providing for an effective date. Resolution 22-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastian, Engine River County, Florida, adopting the tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023, making appropriations for the payment of operating expenses, capital expenses, and for principal and interest payments on indebtedness of the city in the city's general fund, special revenue funds, capital improvement fund, golf course funds, airport fund, and building fund, as provided for in Schedule A attached hereto. Establishing the authority of the city manager to implement the budget, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Nothing further, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Nunn. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, so tonight we're going to request the council consider resolution R22 in the first item, R22-22, adopting our tentative millage of 2.9050, which is 8.2%, 6% above the rollback rate. Council had set a tentative millage rate of 3.0043, so this is a reduction in the the proposed millage set in August 24 of 2022. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Kilgore for a brief presentation on the tentative millage and the budget, which will be heard next.
Mr. Kilgore.
Good evening. So last night we had a meeting of the Budget Committee and updated them on things that had happened to the budget since it was first introduced to them back in, well, initially in July. You guys in August pretty much received what I'm going to present to you tonight. So I'm not going to dwell on it so much, but I am going to cover basically the same general topics, go through and explain each fund and give some more information about property values and millage rates there, as far as an update from what you received before. So the budget itself, as recommended at this point, is a 4.08% increase over last year's budget amount. The biggest part of that is personnel cost. The health insurance increased by 5%. We did make an adjustment to the budgeted numbers for those positions that we have increased up to the minimum pay slots. So that's already in the numbers at this point, is based on the compensation study. I have a correction here. It was pointed out by one of my astute budget committee members that we are adding 7 full-time positions, which I'll go over on the next page. So we had the human resources assistant, 3 police officers, a construction specialist, a planner, and a GIS technician. We also added 1 part-time mechanic, but took out a city clerk clerical assistant slot. There was a vacancy. Same story as before. The operating budget was affected by the new public works complex and adding the electric and rents and computer software needs at that facility. We had some capital equipment in the Parks Department for mowing. And there was a big transfer last year for the Yacht Club seawall repairs, and that is taken out. And of course, there are no transfers in this year's recommendation. So we changed for the minimum pay based on the comp study. We added the planner and GIS technician from what you saw at the August meeting, and we removed the assistant city manager position. There was a small adjustment to the revenue projections for the franchise fees, so I just wanted to mention that as well to make it balance at the 2.9050 millage rate. As far as the golf course, as I reported before, they've had a very good year this year in terms of revenues. Did want to mention once again that the golf carts will be needing to order them this next year for replacement in the following year. The airport budget, we continue to have a lot of grant proceeds helping to fund those projects that are scheduled for the airport, and we use the discretionary sales tax fund primarily to provide the city matching funds for those grant revenues. The building fund budget is also having a very good year. We've got a couple positions that are programmed in the budget. They have some difficulty in finding qualified applicants, so that will give them some flexibility on the type of applicant they can perhaps find during this coming year. The American Rescue Plan Act funds have already been allocated in the current year, so there's no need for additional appropriations to be included in the budget for next year. But we got some major projects there, and they just take some time to get the plans, the permitting, and perhaps any grant funding to help with those. Local option gas tax is coming in at a reasonable growth rate. We've got monies allocated for road work, but we yet to receive or have the figures for the road assessment study to actually have a recommendation on specific roadways. We are making the final payment on the bank note, which is the end of our long-term debts, which I'll mention on another later slide. The DST funds provide a lot of the infrastructure needs for the city, and collections are skyrocketing because, as you can imagine, the inflation rate goes up, so that the amount of taxes received also does. Riverfront CRA continues the programs that we've been paying for, and from those funds, we've got some monies being accumulated in reserves for some future larger projects. Recreation impact fees, a lot of park improvements and playground improvements scheduled over the future years, including doing some work at the Harbor Lights property on the west side. Stormwater Utility Fund, we've got 2 maintenance workers that were cut out of the budget because we are doing that work with contractual services, and we added a part-time inspector position. Most of the large capital improvements for the stormwater system are being funded through grants or DST funding, as well as the American Rescue Plan. The Law Enforcement Foresters Fund and the Parking in lieu of Fund, I just presented for full disclosure that those are a couple of funds that have some small balances accumulated that can be used for those purposes. You'll be considering later tonight an adjustment to the Cemetery Trust Fund. As I mentioned, the debt service, so we'll be making the final payment this December on our long-term debts, and other than that, we've only got a couple of lease purchase agreements that are financed over 60-month periods. It's notable the capital improvement program, about 70% of our capital program for next year is being funded from grant proceeds, so we are leveraging our funds quite well. I updated this chart that I had presented to show the 3 different millage rates comparison to last year and how much additional revenue that would provide. So at the 2.9050, there's about $445,000 more ad valorem tax proceeds than we had last year. This was just a history of the additions to the tax roll, and this year we did have a very strong year of growth. I've updated this chart as well for the showing the 2.9050 and the effect on a homesteaded property versus the other properties that don't have the homestead exemption. You can see that the effect on the homesteaded property should be very minimal. This was a history showing the last 17 years, about 65% of the time, we've come at rollback or below rollback. So we've been very successful with holding the tax rate at a lower level. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. The labor agreements are still in process. They haven't been... We've got meetings scheduled, but nothing settled yet. Big question, and I think everybody's mind is we've had good revenues and savings in the budget the last few years, and if we can continue that we can successfully keep our general fund reserves at a healthy balance. The 2.9050 millage is the 8.26% above the rollback rate. But as I said, the effect on homestead properties would be very minimal, and even the other properties, which should be in the range of 6% or less. I'd be glad to take any questions or help clarify anything.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation, Mr. Kilgore. As always, you guys did a great job. We have a great budget, and we're definitely doing great here in the city. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and open up the public hearing here. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on the budget? Council?
I'd like to move to consider resolution R22-22
For the tentative
tentative millage for the calendar year 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion, Mr. Dodd?
I'd like to ask Mr. Kilgore some questions if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Ken, can you come back up?
You need to close it.
Oh.
Okay, I mean, we're still within the motion.
Yes, we're still within the motion.
Yeah, so. One of the things, and I watched the budget committee meeting, and one of the things that was talked about in the budget committee is the reserve account. I listened to an interesting discussion today at the county commission meeting where they talked about the last 2 months, they've had pretty strong decreases in discretionary sales tax and other funds. I mean, it's kind of unreasonable, and the old person who took economics classes in college but never worked as an economist, but it's very difficult for me to understand how we can be in a recession at the same time people are spending more money than they spent last year. You know, that's a hard, and the question is, do we want to plan on that continuing to happen? But my question about reserves is, exactly how much do we have in reserves today?
6 million.
Today, it's in the range of 1.6 million.
1.6? And that's general fund
I'm
reserve?
sorry.
No, total reserves.
Total, huh?
6,600,000, yes.
Okay, 6.6 million, okay. And how much of that, and without me going to the CAFR, which was last year's budget and waiting for it to come out this year, how much of that funds is not allocated, but is there to cover things like buyouts on sick leave and so forth for employees who leave the city? You have any idea on that?
Well, as you're aware, about the $5 million level is set aside for emergency hurricane recovery, for those unknown factors such as that. I look at the additional amounts being put in. We've got a financial policy document that we update every year. In fact, at the September 28th meeting, I'll bring a draft of the next year's financial policies. But in that policy, we described how any excess over the $5 million can be, should be considered as being available for spending on replacements and repair of facilities, just ongoing things that come up, to things break, kind of funding, and also setting aside monies for future capital projects, just like we just went through the Public Works compound. That kind of funding, you build it into your reserves and you perhaps spend it.
Yeah, I understand that side
and
of it.
then they're gone. I mean,
what about,
it's not an ongoing type.
What about the buyouts on vacation and sick leave for
That's
employees?
part of it, and I've done actually some calculations on, the CAFR shows like over $1 million. The comprehensive financial statements show over $1 million of necessary funding for if everybody left and got their payout amounts. What kind of dollar figure would that be?
So that would drop our actual, assuming we would have an allocated funds for that, that would drop our actual reserves down to about $5.1 million, roughly.
I would feel that would be correct, yes.
And then what happens, how do we cover, we know, I'm not going to tip any hands here on any of the stuff that's going on, but we know that we haven't finished our union negotiations and that there is potentially a liability related to that. And that also is going to have to come out of this reserves under this budget, correct?
Yes, to...
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Okay. What I'm getting at is that, and I asked this question in 2016 and I got beat up over it. My question in 2016 was, what's the minimum reserves that we have to have before we start raising taxes to rebuild reserves? Okay, and a couple of council members thought that I was trying to change the $5 million mark, and I really wasn't, because there is if you look at the reserve bucket and you start subtracting from it these things that could happen. The wrong 10 people leave Sebastian next week. They beat up our reserve account dramatically. Okay, so those things, if we were to allocate those funds, they would be in a separate account just for covering those costs, but we don't allocate them. We keep them in reserves. And if we have overruns on projects, which we know we're going to have to, I mean, we're going to approve tonight 2 additional cost items for the maintenance facility out there. So there's no budget in the maintenance facility to cover those, so that's probably going to have to come out of the reserve account too. So, and I don't know for sure how that's coming out. I haven't looked at that finance, but those things happen, and I understand they happen. My concern is that we're talking about increasing the millage rate, and I'm talking about the millage rate, not the budget. We're talking about increasing the millage rate to 2.905, and that doesn't give us any leeway in the reserve account. Doesn't give us any leeway in additional building on the reserve account. And I am a person who would do rollback every year, except we can't bankrupt the city to do rollback. I mean, this is one of those years where we really are not going to be able to do it. So my question is there sanity in thinking about doing to the 3.043 in an effort to make sure we've covered those costs without negatively impacting the reserve account, which already has a lot of stuff thrown against it?
Okay, I'd like to make a couple of points there in response. The financial policies do speak about the reserves getting below the $5 million, and if they got to the point of $3.5 million, then the policy says that we would try to build into the next year's budget, paying back at least 25% of that difference, of that shortfall. So we've got kind of a mechanism in our policies to say this is what we would do. Now that might have an impact on the following year's tax rates and future years' tax rates to recover from it. But the other point I'd like to make is, even though we budget an amount of revenues and expenditures, if you look at our history, particularly in the last 3 years, and that's why we've got the higher reserves now, is our revenues have come in higher than budget, and our expenses, the department expenditure levels are less than. So we do have a cushion of sort built into our ongoing obligations.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I mean, I hope the economy straightens itself out. A lot of people saying it won't, a lot of people saying it will. I hope it does, but I hate to bet the farm on the fact that it does straighten itself out. That's just my point, is that now I'm not wanting to increase the millage rate above what we're proposing. I just want to ask some questions so I understand exactly what we might be getting into. Okay.
Well, the other thing we do lean to the extent we can, the discretionary sales tax fund, direct impact fees, to the extent that there's improvements to be made that we have overruns on our projects, then we would look to those sources. Now, we can't use that for things that break and we're just replacing at the same.
Right.
But there's flexibility there, and I'm comfortable with it. But the last thing I would say is that whatever millage rate you adopt tonight as a tentative budget, as the city attorney pointed out in the statute, we cannot go up at the final hearing.
Right. I understand that. No, that was my question, is that, if we do the 2.905 tonight, then that's what it's going to be at the final budget hearing.
Cannot exceed that. Yes.
That's right. We're stuck. We have to do that. So, okay. All right. Okay, that's all my questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Dodd. I had numerous conversations with Mr. Kilgore, also watched the Budget Advisory Review. I think with the tentative millage rate being set at 2.9050 is definitely sufficient based on the numbers that I've seen and the conversations that I've had. So I think that's great. Bob?
No. Did a great job. I caught the meeting last night, too.
Yeah, okay.
Must have all been watching the same program.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this then.
Public comment.
Do we have anybody from the public who would like to comment on this? Seeing none, moving forward, close that. Council, what's your pleasure?
Got a motion and a second.
We do have a motion.
Yeah, a motion and a second.
Good. All right. Call the vote.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Next thing,
Well,
Mr. Nunn.
just a quick point of order. You're going to be considering both the two resolutions, so the hearing still remains open until the end of your consideration of 2223, which takes you to Roman numeral 7.
Okay, let's go ahead and, do you need to read that, Mr. Nunn, or do I read it?
It's all yours, sir.
Okay. Consider resolution number R-22-23 for fiscal year 22-23 tentative budget. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, adopting.
One second, sir. Just a point, what I was trying to make is, previously you closed the public hearing. What I'm saying is, remain open so that you now can consider Resolution 22-23. I already read it once. You don't have to read it. But just maintain that the hearing is open, and then continue your consideration of Roman numeral 6.
Very good. All right. Any comments on that? Mr. Nunn? The public hearing is still open, so anyone from the public who would like to speak on that? None? Council? All right, so next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and announce the final public hearing on the millage and the budget will be held on September 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Wait, I'm getting confused here now.
You have to have a motion on that. Yeah, Vice Mayor, you need to call a motion and a vote on R-22.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to set the final public hearing on the millage and budget for September 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Good. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second.
That includes Resolution 22-23, which is the budget.
R-22-22 and R-22-23.
Right. Just to be clear, sir.
Yeah.
The council has already considered and ruled on R-22-22. You now should consider Resolution R-22-23, which is the tentative budget. Once you consider that, have a motion, second, and vote, and then move to the conclusion.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think you might have, but what I understood, Mr. Jones, was he didn't close the public hearing. He closed public comment on the first matter.
Right.
And then he was starting the second matter.
All right.
And that's where we are now.
Right.
So I'll make a motion.
There you go.
To consider resolution number R-22-23, the tentative budget for the upcoming year.
Second.
All right, there you go. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Let's call the vote. Jeanette?
Public input.
Public input.
Okay. Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, so again, the final public hearing on the millage and the budget will be held on September 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Next thing on our agenda is a public hearing and first reading of ordinance number O-22-06. Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, pertaining to our Land Development Code, Chapter 54. It reads, amending the Land Development Code by adding Section 54-2 -5.2.4A, new zoning district regulations for RM10 relating to medium-density, multiple-family residential use. Amending the Land Development Code Section 54-2-6.4 by amending conditional use criteria relating to RM10, medium-density, multiple-family residential use. Amending Section 54-3-15.2, parking requirements relating to medium-density, multiple-family residential use, providing for severability and repeal of residential use, providing for severability and repeal of law in conflict, providing for codification, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, members of council, this is part of our comprehensive plan change, and I know Ms. Frazier and her staff has worked very hard on this. This will also help us with trying to establish credits and transfer of density rights and that to make for attainable housing for our workforce and housing available for them. And I will turn it over to Ms. Frazier for any particular matters that you want to address and her comments as well.
Ms. Frazier.
Oh, thank you. I'm here to answer any questions regarding the zoning new zoning district. And as the manager has astutely advised, this is part of our updated comprehensive plan, which called for a new zoning district with a higher density, maximum density of 10 units per acre. It also calls for a mix of housing. And so we brought this new zoning district to our Planning and Zoning Commission, who unanimously recommended approval because it does attain those goals that are set out in the comprehensive plan. So I'm here to answer any specific questions regarding the items in red.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Fraser. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Not at this time.
All right, staff summation. Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. Again, we think this is a step in the right direction for allowing for a possibility of attainable housing and some densities that will not create more urban sprawl. I think it's important that we follow the new comprehensive plan that we've established, and this further sets those goals into motion. We'd ask council to approve this ordinance.
All right, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close this hearing. Council?
I just have one question. It's just kind of a simple one. On special regulations, item 4, I think that's on 59 of our packet. It says in the top of page 59, the developer shall establish an association or nonprofit corporation for all individuals or corporate owning properties within the development. Are we referencing nonprofit corporations because of some legal requirement to do that? And the only reason I ask this is it's pretty common for people to take whatever government money they can get, build it, and then sell it to a nonprofit to run it, and the nonprofit takes it off the tax rolls. So.
Are you asking me,
Yes,
sir?
ma'am.
Okay.
Is there something that we have to do because of state statute to do that? Are we required to reference nonprofits in that?
Well, I believe so, but this is in reference to establishing our homeowners associations, which are typically part of these types of developments, and they are generally nonprofits. So this is an association with establishing the HOAs.
Okay.
This language is found in our RM8 zoning district as well.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's fine. I just, when I read that, it kind of triggered in my mind that it's very common practice for people to do these kind of things and then sell them to a nonprofit, and it goes off the tax rolls, and they don't pay taxes on it, don't maintain it, and stuck with it. Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah,
all right, I'm fine with it.
We definitely don't want that in the city, because then we'll have the responsibility of maintaining that if that happened that way.
Yeah, so I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Mr. Nunn, you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Mr. McPartland?
No, I'll move approval of ordinance number O-22-06.
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Do we have any other discussion on the item? Hearing none, call the vote. Jeanette?
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartland?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And Mr. Vice Mayor, did you provide public input time on that? You did? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I got him straight on that.
You keep him straight. You're closer to it.
D.
Next thing on our item is public hearing, second reading, ordinance number O-22-01. Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, pertaining to the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance, Chapter 34, Cemeteries, amending Section 34-11, the establishment of interment fees, amending Section 34-23, establishing interment timeframes, amending Section 34-26, amending the procedures for rules, violations, creating a Section 34-59 to ensure markers are relocated after funeral services, creating Section 34-60, prohibiting above-ground vaults, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, members of council, going back to 2014 was when the last time these rules and rates and considerations were looked at. On the 24th of August, 2022, City Council approved this ordinance on first reading. There have been no modifications to it since that time. Some things to point out is, one, it allows us to establish rates by resolution so they can be amended from time to time, but also it establishes some changes in the process where on Christmas Day there would not be any funeral services allowed, and on Thanksgiving Day no funeral services allowed. And we're going to later recommend some fee changes that will make it more concise. In other words, you won't buy a funeral plot and then have to pay for X, Y, and Z, and the fees just add up. So it'll be a little easier for staff and for the person that's buying the plot. So we're asking you to approve ordinance. Approve this ordinance on second reading and final adoption.
Mr. McFerrin, move approval.
Excuse me, sir?
I move approval.
And we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on the item? Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Next thing we have on our agenda is a public hearing. Consider waste management request to increase residential collection rates. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, if you could open the public hearing, and then we'll bring waste management up to discuss their items.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this waste management request to increase residential collection rates. Mr. Carlisle.
So, yeah, Vice Mayor, members of council, I was approached by Waste Management. As we all know, costs of labor, fuel, supplies, equipment have gone up tremendously. Waste Management has given us a proposal to raise their rates. I reviewed it. I did some research on fuel costs. They were considering asking council to consider a 26.9% increase based on their calculations. And I did my own calculations, and my recommendation for council to consider was 15%. I would like for Deborah Perez to come up and do a slide presentation so you have the full picture of what they're asking for and why, and you can make your final determination based on that and on staff's recommendations, or you can stick with the contracted amount of 3%, which is what they would only be entitled to. Ms. Perez?
Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, City Council members, staff. My name is Debbie Perez, and I am the Government Affairs Manager for WM's offices here in Indian River County. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to do this short presentation to kind of show you and the public some of the extraordinary inflationary costs that we've been incurring for the past couple of years. First slide is really just an infographic. You know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You'll see a lot of upwards arrows. Those are all the increased costs that people in our businesses in our industry have incurred over the last year. Biggest ones that are really impacting us are the CNG. You'll see that's up 99%, and most of our trucks are CNG trucks. Labor, significant wage increases in labor, yet our labor shortages are still there. So, I mean, everything's going up. We all know it. I mean, we go out to a restaurant, restaurants closed because there's no laborers out there. We're a little bit more unique because we require CDL drivers for our jobs. So we are at a 40-year high on inflationary cost, rising wages, shipping increases, gasoline prices. This was done in June, but you'll see that the prices are over $5 for diesel and CNG. Fuel, look over to the right, you're looking at 230% increase on natural gas features, lubes, oils. Here we got our labor cost. You know, this is industry-wise, these slides are based on industry, but our district here in Indian River County that supports the city of Sebastian, our labor increases have increased significantly. And I'll show you why a little bit later down the slide, but we're a little bit unique in that we require CDL drivers, where Amazon, FedEx does not require CDL drivers. And you'll see that there's actually less CDL drivers available for us to hire than there are available. So, maintenance costs, again, tires, lubes, everything's going up. Carts, we have some growth here in the city of Sebastian. We had to purchase new carts. The HDPE is up 109%. Steel for our trucks and for our commercial dumpsters and our roll-offs, up 146%. And the collection vehicles, and I know, we meet routinely with the city manager trying to let them know what's going on in our operations. WM is the largest purchaser of collection vehicles, garbage collection vehicle in the United States, and we are being told it's 18 months to 24 months to get a new garbage truck delivered. Crazy. CD availability. You'll see the schools have a 40% drop in people going to the CDL drivers, and over here where it talks about Amazon, FedEx, and UPS, probably a little bit more cushier type of job than running a garbage truck, but they don't require a CDL. And kind of unique thing is, since the legalization of medical marijuana, they had over 40,000 drivers who were pulled off of the roads because of failed drug screenings. So what has WM done to mitigate some of these labor shortages? We're kind of fortunate that we have mostly an automated system here in the city of Sebastian. Our only manual rear load trucks are for our yard waste. But we still are feeling the impact. We're feeling pretty good. We increased compensation. We do wage studies throughout. Historically, we've only given like one increase a year for our employees. Last year, we probably had 3 different pay increases just based on the wage and trying to get people attracted to our offices to work for us. Sign-on bonuses, in the real crunch, I saw sign-on bonuses were $10,000 that we were giving drivers. Because come in, of course, they knew it wasn't paid all up front, but in order to attract people to come into our offices. Sourcing candidates faster. We did hold a job fair here in Indian River County a few months back, and we were pleasantly surprised that we had a lot of, we hired probably, I think, 7 or 8 drivers from that. But I will tell you what's happening today, and I even haven't shared this with the city manager yet, but there is one of our competitors who's south of us who just started a brand new contract. And with the new contract, they have probably nicer, newer trucks, and their starting wages are slightly higher than ours. So far, we've lost 6 drivers to that competitor. The good news, the upside is that some of those drivers have asked to come back because they see that the grass wasn't always greener on the side. They didn't really figure benefits, and their net paychecks weren't as much as they thought they would be. The good part about it also, it's usually our newer drivers because of starting wages, so we have still retained our senior drivers, so that's good news. Again, CPI, we talked about that. We are capped at 3% on this, and it's actually CPIU. There's a couple other indexes that are a little more in line with our industry, which is water, sewer, trash, or garbage and trash. But all 3 indexes are rising steadily. Over 7% is what the average is. So at the end of the day, we've been a value partner here in the city of Sebastian. Most people know Bob De La Cruz. He's been here forever. I'm trying to make sure he stays at least one more year to get us through this RFP process. And we want to, our workers work here. We're part of the community. We go to community events. We assist with that kind of stuff, and we want to be a continued partner. So we appreciate staff even looking at us, not throwing us out of his office when we asked for a 27% increase. But we gave him all the backup and supporting that why we're requesting this increase. So we appreciate any consideration tonight.
All right, thank you so much. Council?
Mr. Vice Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
So, I can't argue with the numbers and with what you're asking for. And there's a challenge because I don't just answer to staff or to you. I answer to a bunch of city residents as well. And if I went to a restaurant and I was unhappy with the meal and it cost me $20 today, and I went back to that same restaurant next week and it cost me $25 and the meal still wasn't good, I wouldn't go back there again. I get a lot of calls and a lot of messages and a lot of people that are unhappy. They're unhappy with the service, they're unhappy with missed pickups, and yes, I understand there's labor shortages, I understand all of the other reasons for the inflation. But it's a hard pill to swallow to sit up here and say, I'm going to give you more money when people aren't happy with the service to an extended point. So there's no way I could ever go for that 27%. I mean, there's no way. I would get lynched in the streets for that. And understanding it's not really that much money, but 27% is a huge increase. So I don't know. I'd like to hear from the other three and see what their thoughts are on this. It's definitely an interesting time because you have a contract to provide a service, and if it's lacking, then it's not our fault and it's not the residents' fault. And get it that there's extenuating circumstances and things causing that, but at the same time, we have people to answer to that aren't happy. So I guess what do the other three of you have to say?
Thank you so much, Mr. Nunn. And I look at that, and when you hear these numbers, it's across the whole company, and they're a large company. So it's not about our area specifically, it's industry-wide for the company. So I am happy with the numbers that our staff came up with. I wish that we didn't have to raise it at all, but, you know, I'm happy with the numbers that our staff came up with. Anyone else? Mr. Dodd?
When's the actual contract up?
It's July of 2023. We're completing the RFQ now to get some options out there. So that should be going out pretty quickly. And just we didn't say it, the request, the 15%, I believe it's $1.88 a month change in the collection rate.
Okay. $1.88, yes.
Sorry?
$1.88, yes.
Yes, that's correct. A month.
And the normal increase would have been 3%?
So their maximum...
Into the contract? Maximum?
So yes, their maximum is the CPI or 3%, whichever is less or greater.
Well, it was interesting that Councilmember Nunn talked about the restaurant thing because the last 2 weeks I've eaten in the same restaurant 3 times and I've paid more money for the meal all 3 times. And you know, this is the same conversation I was having with Mr. Kilgore earlier, is that unemployment is below 3%, but nobody wants to apply, so nobody wants to apply for jobs, but they say the reason they don't want to apply is they're not making enough money. So this is an absolutely unusual time in the economy right now where, I'm not sure exactly what's going to solve that, but I do appreciate the position Waste Management's in. I appreciate the fact that they, a lot of the problems that they have are caused by the fact that they can't find drivers and they can't do this and the trucks are breaking down. Now people can say that's their problem, and in some regards it is their problem. We are talking about putting this out for bid over the next 6 months, basically. And so I would be in favor of the 15% rate adjustment between now and the time it goes out for adjustment, it goes out for bid.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McPartland?
I was up here when we originally did the contract with Waste Management, 10 years ago. And I mean, this is interesting. So we're only talking for the next 9 months until this goes out to bid to pay this. And I've seen all the complaints about Waste Management, and I spoke to Bob and Ms. Perez. I saw them at a county commission meeting a few months ago, and they've had a lot of drivers, and they had already had a driver talking to them about, some of the things are, I don't know, putting the can exactly back where it was when the driver picked it up. That's a little bit, I think, out there. If it's in the street, that's a problem, but to put the can exactly back, and again, I heard, because if the can falls over, the senior can't pick it up, and I understand that. But also Waste Management, if you call Waste Management and you can't bring your can to the street, they'll stop at your house, walk up to your house, bring your can down, do it, and put it back for you. So a lot of people don't understand what Waste Management is willing to do for those. And I have always found Waste Management using either the phone number or the website to get in touch with them. Like, you always see the people that just throw all the garbage out there and they just figure somebody's gonna come around and pick it up. But all you gotta do is call Waste Management, and within 72 hours, as long as you have an account with Waste Management, they'll come pick up whatever you put out there. I mean, not nuclear hazards, but I mean, you put out 10 beds and 8 couches and a couple of fridges and air conditioners, they pick it up. And right now, the cost is less than $13 a month. They will come and pick up the trash at my house twice a week, a big can. And then I could call them probably twice a week to come for this bulk pickup for $13 a month. I don't know how they do it, you know? So I'm okay with the 15% increase and then going till July, because, I mean, also if you read the papers about the problem in Port St. Lucie County, with their garbage provider, Waste Management has been a very good provider here. You know, there might be the stuff that I hear the complaints about, I mean, that's small potatoes compared to the stuff. We had a couple of holidays, you know, where they don't pick up that day, they come the following day, whatever your service was. And also sometimes you got a shortage of drivers. When they're out there picking up, they're going as fast as they can. So sometimes the truck is full, they take it down, and then next day they'll pick you up first thing in the morning. At least that's been my thing. And we were down, Mr. Jones and Mr. Carlisle, we were at the county meeting this morning, and they were talking about, because they have to transport the recyclables from our landfill down to St. Lucie. And right now, the one who is currently doing it, he says, I can't do this anymore. So they had to go out to bid with 2 companies that are not even in this area. One was out of Indiana, the other one was down in Miami, and they're coming back with, it was, I think, almost double the cost of what they were currently doing. So I'm also hoping, Ms. Perez and Mr. De La Cruz, is that when the RFP is coming back for the next, whatever, 5 years and 5 years there, that Waste Management will put a, you know, a hometown discount in the bid, because I am afraid at the next contract, what the rates are going to be. $13 a month, $15 a month, that's going to be long gone. And there's not many providers willing to do it based on all the costs they're talking about. And like the garbage truck, if you order parts for a garbage truck or a new garbage truck, you're talking a year and a half, 2 years out. So I'm for the increase.
All right. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Yes, sir. Please come up. Give us your name and where you live. Move to the center, Bill. Move to the center. Move to the center of that so you can get both of them.
Like this. Other than this one, never mind.
There you go.
That's what happens. I'm go to the right. I noticed that.
Your name for the record, sir?
Bill Simmons, Sebastian.
Thank you.
Droughty Way. I think the allowance was 2.5%, or the way it was worked up for the increase in salaries, according to what I was just reading for the city side. And I just wonder what the increase in salaries were for the city.
No, we're talking about waste management
I
contract.
understand,
Now, okay.
but aren't they entitled to something along the lines the employees for Sebastian were increased as a percentage?
No, the CPI governs that, so.
Anyway, okay, I just was only question. I realize that what I'm saying would cost a little bit more, but also I just think the employees were, they're the employees because they come 4 times a week. I personally don't have any problem with them. I agree with Bob. I haven't had any problem with them, so that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak on this? Hearing none, Councilman, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we approve the city's recommendation of 15% rate adjustment.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Motion
All
carries.
right. We're at that time in our agenda where we're going to Recess the city council meeting and convene the Board of Adjustments. First thing, what we're going to do first before we get into this Board of Adjustment, because this may last a little bit, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and then we'll see y'all in 10 minutes. Agenda is the approval of the minutes from June 8, 2022, Board of Adjustment meeting. Council?
Make a motion. Approval. Second.
We have a motion by Councilman McPartland, second by Mr. Nunn. Any questions? All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Oh. Mr. Nunn.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is the owners, in this case is Ronald and Jeanette Zoll, in regards to Lot 13 and 14, Block 335, Sebastian Highland Unit 13, located at 1493 Bevan Drive, is requesting a variance to allow the roof materials of an accessory structure that is over 750 square feet in size to be different than the principal structure, whereas the Land Development Code Section 54-2-7.5 C Charlie 7 requires the materials to be the same.
All right, thank you so much for that, sir. Any ex parte communications from the board?
No, sir.
None? Hearing none?
None.
City clerk, swear in all witnesses.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and the factual representation which you are about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now we'll have the applicant or the applicant's agent make their presentation. Mr. Zoll.
My main house roof is 20 years old. It's a shingle roof. It's time, after 20 years, it's time for a replacement roof. We have looked at metal roofing, my wife and I, and we decided we want to go off a metal roof, which supposedly lasts longer, will hold up better. Not realizing that there's a code here in town that an adjoining, I got another structure, I got a 24 by 30 garage on a separate lot. The back of the property, it has a shingle roof. It's only 10 years old. We feel we should not be held liable to having to replace that roof, which is only 10 years old, with a metal roof. I mean, the house itself, we're going to put a new roof on. The other structure we have there, which is only 10 years old, does not need a roof. It's in perfectly good shape. I've had other people look at it, contractors, and say there's no problem with it. That it should give me another 10 years. And to throw $8,000 onto something that should last again for possibly 10 years just doesn't make sense. And the garage itself, the detached garage, is 26 feet away from my house. It sits on the back of the property. Most people don't even realize that it's a garage back there. It's blocked by trees, and we feel that it's just wrong for us to have to do that. You know, if it needed a new roof, we would put one on, but it doesn't need a new roof. And to throw the money on that, my wife and I are both retired, fixed income. To afford the house roof itself is a lot for us.
Thank you.
I don't know what else to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have petition here from my neighbors, if you like to look at it, who have signed. There's 13 people on it that have signed. They have no problem with, I don't know if you want to look at this.
Yes, sir. You can give it to the clerk, but what we're dealing with is, you can give it to the clerk. What we're dealing with is the actual code, whether or not you're in compliance with the code or not. So, is there, you'll have an opportunity to come back up from conversations with other people to talk about anything further that someone else brought up later, unless you have further comments now.
No, that's all I have. It's just,
all right, sir. We'll call you back up when that time comes.
Okay.
All right. We'll have staff go ahead and present your findings. Dory?
Yes, thanks, Councilman. I first would like to request that the staff report and the board criteria be entered into the record for this quasi-judicial hearing, and also disclose that staff had received a letter also from a neighbor at the 1491 Bevan Drive that she felt that she had no problems and she was okay if there would be a difference in the roof. So I wanted to put that in part of the record.
Thank you.
As Mr. Zoll explained, he is wanting to submit a building permit to re-roof his house. We were aware that he does have a 26 by 30 detached garage that went before the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2013, and it was presented before the board at that time that it's a custom garage versus a prefab garage. So at that time, the plans clearly show the roofs would be matching. We've included in your packet a copy of the section of the code that requires these to be similar and or matching based on the size, and to disclose anything, an accessory structure over 500 square feet is required to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission to verify that it is similar and or matching the house based on its size. The intent of the code is so that we don't have the residential neighborhoods with industrial looking buildings, and once they get larger, that they're complementary into the neighborhood. Mr. Zoll did explain that his dilemma, and the question is it is his choice to choose that metal roofing versus replacing with the asphalt shingles. And so we have gone over the code with Mr. Zoll, and he opted to ask for relief before you. We have provided, like I say, the copy of the code. We have presented to you in your packet. There is a copy of the staff report and the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission from 2013, where they approved it as a matching roof. Pictures, and also, of course, Mr. Zoll's application and his written request for this variance. We're going to disclose that there are two other accessory structures on that property. They were under 500 square feet, so they did not have to go before Planning and Zoning, and he is at his maximum of 1,000 square feet. Of those other two, one of them does have asphalt shingles, and one is of a fabric material, metal material, the smaller one. I'd like to just quickly go over the board criteria that's in our land development code that you're supposed to consider in granting this variance. Staff has kind of put together how we feel that he does or does not meet some of that criteria. I'd like to go over those, but of course that is what Mr. Zoll is before you, is to determine if you agree with staff or maybe you feel some of the criteria has or has not been met. For you to grant this variance, there should be an existence of special conditions or circumstances. Staff feels that most of our larger detached garages are built after the house is built. So this is a predicament that a lot of the owners with larger accessory structures have, where the roof on their house may be of a different age than the one that's on the accessory structure. But in the past, they have re-roofed their house or re-roofed the accessory structure to be the same materials to match that. So this isn't necessarily an existence of a special condition. The condition cannot be created by the applicant. We feel that it is sort of being created. It's a choice of metal roofing versus asphalt, but we understand the reason. It's a stronger roof and a better roof, but the resolution to that is to also roof the accessory structure. Another criteria is that special privileges are not conferred. We have had all of the residents that have come in with properties, accessory structures over 500 square feet, have had to be similar and or match their roof to the house. The hardship condition exists. I don't believe that variances can be granted for financial reasons, but the opportunity to re-roof the residence is not eliminated. If you don't grant the variance, there's still an opportunity for him to re-roof his house. So that's not going to be eliminated. The hardship is not being created if the variance is not granted. The other one that we feel that he does not match is that it's not injurious to the public welfare or intent of the ordinance. Putting a metal roof on the house is certainly not going to be dangerous or affect the public safety of the neighborhood. But the intent of the ordinance is so that these larger accessory structures, and this gentleman does have 3 of them on the property, that they're supposed to be matching so that it doesn't affect property values in the area. And our dilemma was also that in 2013 it was approved matching the house. So this is, staff is recommending denial of this variance, but we certainly can discuss that and your decision if he meets these criteria or not to grant the variance.
Okay, thank you so much. Any member from the board have questions for staff or the applicant?
I guess, I'm looking at this and I'm starting to think that he's probably replacing the roof because his insurance company's telling him he's got to replace it. That might be the cost. And, I heard him say he's on a fixed income, and the shingle roof for the garage is basically fairly new. It was 2013, and the house roof is almost 20 years old. And he's probably in that predicament and doesn't have enough money to do both. Is there a way we could approve this one, and then if he has to come back a permit to roof the garage, that at that time would have to be in compliance?
One of the
Mr. Dodd?
one of the issues, and this is one of those yin and yang things. You want to do something to help him out, but one of the issues is that once we approve this, there's any number of other residences that we've set the precedent with them. And the question is, do we want to set that precedent? And I tend to agree that what insurance companies are doing right now to people to replace the roofs on their houses is going to create problems for accessory structures that are newer than a house, especially when the accessory structure is 10 years old or less. The insurance company will be back probably 7 or 8 years from now not wanting to insure the accessory structure until that's replaced. But it's kind of torn because I know that once we establish the precedent, we're going to have any number of people come through to do that. And our attempt to make sure that accessory structures match the primary structure is going to be very difficult to maintain in the future if we do that. So there's considerations on both sides of this.
And he might be the first of many that will be coming as a result, but at least I see in the aerial photos is the accessory structure is kind of in the back covered by, it seems like, trees on just about all sides.
And a wooden fence.
Right, and I don't know if in this case, do we send out any letters to the neighbors like we do in some of these instances?
Yes, this was a quasi-judicial public hearing, so letters did go out to surrounding property owners and legal ad, and that's what Mr. Zoll gave to the city clerk. He does have signatures from his neighbors that they were okay with this, and we received a letter. With regards to your question on the accessory structure, I'm not sure if you approve the variance stating, though, that when the accessory structure needs a new roof, that he had to put a metal roof on or to match. That would necessarily it's a covenant on the property then. I don't know how we could enforce that with a variance approval or an order, if that would have something to be recorded, or if that becomes a covenant on the property then that he has to put a metal roof on his accessory structure. So I'm not sure if that's doable. It'd be a city attorney question.
Right.
I think that's what you were asking though, Mr. Partner, correct?
Or, I mean, if they got a new roof on the accessory structure, it would have to come back to us. They'd have to get a permit, no?
A permit, yes, but not before this board.
Right, but could it be flagged that, hey?
And that's what I'm not sure if it becomes a covenant on the property.
Mr. Carlisle?
So the challenge becomes, and I think Dory brushed over it, is, so we approve the variance, and 3 months later he sells the property. How do you get that roof, that metal roof put on? Does he have to disclose to that property owner? We're getting into commerce then. And, I think the code is written the way it is. If we want to change the code, then that's another thing. But I think we're going to get ourselves in a bind when we say, well, your shed's behind trees, behind the fence, it's 26 feet away, it's here, it's there. We're going to do site planning for roofs. I don't think that's the intent of the code. The intent of the code is to make it match. The intent is he wants to put on a metal roof, and the code says you have to match. He can re-roof it with shingles. He chooses not to because it's not as strong or sturdy, but that is the remedy. I feel for the cost, but I don't think we set variances up on income and ability to. I think we chase our rabbit down the hole. But as far as putting conditions on, that's where I have a concern, Mr. Attorney.
Well, I concur with both what Dory was saying and what the city manager was saying. The code specifically requires, and it says that you must follow these criteria, and you have to consider both the structure and the roof. Again, I'm not blaming either way. I know you said earlier, Mr. Councilmember McPartland, that it's expensive to do one. He can do the other. I mean, I know when I was doing my roof, obviously the metals are a lot more expensive than shingles. It's a preference. So it's a choice that he's making. Our code, you're going to have to consider both. And according to our codes, you must follow. For the variance, these are the things that you must follow. So I concur. I don't think you can separate them, and I don't see how you can enforce it.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Mr. Nunn.
Ms. Bosworth, I'm just curious, how many roofing permits do we have coming in over like a year period that have accessory structures that we're having to verify the roofing material of those structures?
I don't have a number for you.
Okay.
I come from the building department.
Is it a lot?
And I'm not sure that permits might not come in, that they come in as a roofing permit for the house. There's no information on that application that says, do you have a matching accessory structure? So I'm not sure how we're catching it. We were just aware because this one had gone before planning and zoning. And there was another one too that came in a few months ago also where they had an accessory structure that we were aware that address had an accessory structure that went before planning and zoning.
So there's the possibility permits are coming before being approved because we're not aware of accessory structures. But this case, because we were aware of it because of the situation, it was noted. I guess the question I ask is, when you get a new building permit for a roof, is there something on that building permit that asks if you have accessory structures as an information?
No.
It's the honor system.
Because I'm reading it all, and I want to be clear where my thought process is going. There's a requirement by code that if you build an accessory structure, by code, the roofing material of that accessory structure has to meet the main dwelling. We have no code that I've seen that says if you re-roof your house, you have to re-roof your accessory structure, and that roofing now has to match the accessory structure, if you understand where I'm going.
Yes, but you could logic, though, that the ones that have been approved were approved by a motion by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Correct.
That they had to match. So there's always that approval by the commission that you even got to build the accessory structure with giving the information to the Planning and Zoning Commission that you were going to have matching roofs.
I guess the challenge is we are aware of the accessory structure, and I think maybe in the future we should talk about possibly adding that information to the building permit for roofs, because it might be an important.
Because the consideration is we're telling the applicants with the accessory structures that you have to be in compliance with our code when you build the accessory structure. But down the road, you don't have to be in compliance anymore if you're going to re-roof or repaint your house. So it would be similar that if you repainted your house, and you don't need a permit for that, but we would hope that the homeowner would also then repaint their accessory structure to match the house color now too, because that's a requirement also, that you're similar.
And I know this is a rabbit hole as well, because what I'm suggesting is maybe a variance could be approved based on the facts of there's no code that says when re-roofing a house, it has to match an accessory structure. I guess I get where the code's coming from, but the code deals very specifically with building a new accessory structure, not with re-roofing your house. I don't know.
Right, and that's me too. I'm thinking about that because it says it's about actually building the structure, then you have to be
Correct.
compatible. But.
Mr. City Manager?
I think you could then say if I build a house and it meets code, and then I go to repair the house, I don't have to meet the code.
Well, unless there's a building permit required.
So there are things that you could do that don't require a permit. I think the intent wasn't to say, okay, I did it now I don't have to follow the code anymore. I don't think that was the intent when the code was drafted.
No.
And if someone re-roofed a house that didn't re-roof a accessory shed, and it was required, and it was found out by code enforcement, it would become a code enforcement action.
It would.
So it's not like they're getting away with it. Eventually, something's going to happen that's going to bring that to someone's attention. I think the intent of the code is not for it to be a one-time meet the code. I think the code is your accessory structure has to meet your accessory structure has to meet your ancillary structure. And I don't think it's now I'm going to do it. It's if we got to write a code that says, you know, you have to follow this forever and ever, amen, I think the code's intent is, until the code is changed, that's a requirement,
Right.
in my opinion.
Agreed.
You have anything else, Mr.?
No, sir.
Mr. Dodd?
I got kind of confused during that last exchange. And it wasn't anything to do with the exchange, it was my mind working. What brought this to your attention? The fact that he had to do, I mean, did he come in for a permit to re-roof his house?
No, Mr. Zoll came into our department and asked and stated his dilemma.
Okay, so he voluntarily came in the department
Yes,
and
there has
said-
been no formal permit applied for yet.
Okay, so he voluntarily came in. Okay, and so, and one thing I do want to say is that the code specifically says that the accessory structure has to match the house. That code applies whether it's a brand-new accessory structure or whether you're modifying the accessory structure in the house through paint or through whatever, that code still applies. That doesn't go away because you've already built it and it's brand new. That code still applies. The question, though, is how do we enforce that? And if we're not necessarily enforcing it, then that's where the rabbit hole really opens up, because we're saying our code is this way strict, and we're not enforcing it except when we find out that we should be enforcing it because some guy voluntarily comes in. So what if he went to the building department and asked, and I think I heard Councilmember Nunn ask this question. If he went to the building department instead of coming to you and asked for a permit to re-roof his house, or his contractor did, because he wouldn't do it, his contractor would do it, the building department's not going to ask him, or are they going to ask him about accessory structures?
Correct, because it's not a question on the application, and for a re-roof, you're not required to submit a survey. You know,
Okay.
if there was, a lot of these
Okay.
permits, when you're submitted for a survey, when we have to check setbacks or something, we're going to get a survey that shows the accessory structure.
So in reality, the only way that we're enforcing that is if and code officers can't do unanimous or anonymous code violation structures anymore. So the only way that would happen is if somebody complained to code enforcement that he now had a metal roof on the house and a shingle roof on the accessory structure. That's the only way we would ever find out about that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, not only that, though, I mean, me as a layperson, I'm not a contractor. If you have 500 square feet or less, you do not have to match. But 750 square feet or more, you have to match the house?
Yes, so if you're at 501 and above to 1,000 square feet, you have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. You have a copy of the code. I'm going to disclose. What it says is 501 to 750, you have to be compatible with the house, and you have to be very similar. Anything over 750, you have to match the house exactly, which is hard when you're doing a prefab. What's unique about Mr. Zoll is he's at 720 square feet. It was a custom built, but he went before Planning and Zoning Commission with the plan showing that it matches the house. So, you know, there was an accessory structure that went before the Planning and Zoning Commission at their last meeting at 720 square feet. Difference was is he had a prefab building that was coming with a metal roof, and he had shingles on his house. And he asked the Planning and Zoning Commission if he was okay to match the colors. And so, because it was under 750 square feet, and Planning and Zoning approved that at 750 with matching the colors, but one was a shingle roof, one was a metal roof. He hadn't hit the threshold of 750 that said he had to match the house exactly. Our conundrum with Mr. Zoll is that he has already taken his before Planning and Zoning, and it was approved with a matching roof.
Right, so my point with that was, it's like 500, you say 501 to 750. Me as a layperson, if I drive by somebody's house, I see a 500 square foot building, or it could be 500 square foot, it could be 650. I don't know the difference between what 500 is and 650 just looking at something. So as far as the talking about enforcing that, how can someone enforce that when they don't even know? Then they have to get out, pull plans, or measure the building, the structure, to know what the size is before you can actually complain on it. So,
from what I'm hearing in our discussion, I'm inclined to approve the variance.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to approve this variance.
Hang on.
I can make a motion.
Okay.
If staff could suggest a recommended condition of approval if the variance is going to be approved, though, similar to the other one that went before the Planning and Zoning Commission, that the colors be the same. So the shingles on the detached garage is a brown, and I know that some of the metal roofs, instead of having a silver metal roof, they do offer other colors. So at least the colors would be compatible, and you would still be in compliance with that part of that.
May we ask the citizen if that's the applicant, if that's an acceptable term?
Mrs. Zoll, would you come up, please?
It's okay. If they made the restriction that the color of the metal roof would have to be brown, essentially to match the shingles, would that be an acceptable restriction?
If you go brown, then if the house paint is ever changed, it's supposed to coincide with the roof, correct? I mean, if I read it correctly, everything is supposed to kind of match. And if you have a brown roof, you might not want to, then your house would have to be painted to go along with the color of your shingles or your roof. Am I correct with that?
His house looks like it's salmon colored, so I don't know if a brown roof will go with the salmon color, correct?
Thank you.
I'm not sure if the asphalts are dark brown or there's different shades of those.
Again, the structure, this garage is 26 feet away from my house. It's at the back of an extra lot, which is, you drove by it, it's not that noticeable from the street. Am I correct?
The roof is noticeable. You don't see the structure itself, but you see the roofs of the three accessory structures, and those photos are in your packet.
Could be separate from the house. I mean, it's far enough away where you don't put the two together. I don't think.
Can I? What we're dealing with right now is this particular code, sure, and we're trying to, if you haven't noticed, there are some things going on here to try to make things better for you in this process. I don't know where we're actually going, but we have to deal with the code right now and what the code says. I understand that property is 26 feet away from your house, and then the roof and everything else is covered by trees, but Councilman Nunn just wanted to ask you that question about if you would be willing to go to a metal roof color that matches your shingles on your
What I heard about different color metal roofs, I could be mistaken, is that they have to be maintained or painted every so often.
I don't know the answer.
Where with the silver or the ones you usually see, you don't have to worry about them.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you for that. We'll call you back up in a few minutes if we need to. If you need some closing.
If the garage needed a roof on it, I would get a metal roof. 4 years from now, we need a roof, I'd get a metal roof. Take the shingles off and go with metal. I'm not trying to.
And you're not trying to move anytime soon either, are you? Okay.
Okay.
All right, sir.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
And I'd hate to see the guy say he'd commit to a brown roof, and his wife's not here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't get him to commit to a brown roof. He's got to go home later.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to withdraw my motion until we have further discussion.
Right.
I'd like to withdraw that motion just until we finish discussion.
So Councilman Nunn was put up a motion earlier. He's withdrawing that until we complete our deliberations here. Next thing we have is anyone from the public who wish to speak in favor of this. Yes, sir. Come on up. Wait till you get to the podium, sir, so we can hear you on the mic.
I live on Bevan Drive, 2 houses away.
I didn't hear your name, sir.
Gary Raymond.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And I'm just here to support his application. I have no objections to it. The other neighbors have no objections to it.
All right. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I just think he wants to do an upgrade to a better roof. And he's going to, if he can't have this approval, he's going to have to put something less on this house. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. All right. Thank you, sir.
So, if I may, Mr. Vice Mayor, obviously this is a challenge because it's trying to abide by our code, but trying to understand that there are variances for reasons, and I don't know, you know, I went through the staff recommendations and the staff checklist, as I'll assume it's called. And obviously there aren't enough reason from a legal perspective, as it would be, of reasons why we would offer a variance. And, you know, I think the answer is, and that's why I withdrew my motion, is because something might be unenforceable or tough to enforce, I think we probably have to go with the code because the code's there for a reason. And it goes back to that same rabbit hole. If we approve this, it's not going to be the last one because it's going to set a precedent, and we'll have to deal with this over and over and over and over again. And the question is, we're setting future councils up for decisions of going against a precedent or going with it. So I don't know if anybody else has a motion they'd like to make or
Let me finish with the public input first.
Yes, sir.
there. Is there anyone from the floor opposing this? Yes, ma'am.
I do have someone on Zoom that would like to speak as well.
We'll get to them. Thank you.
Kelly Dixon, 71 Blue Island Street. I feel for him. I have been in this situation before, but I also understand the code. I also understand, as I've done a lot of research, when we were put in this predicament, when we put we built an addition on our home for my mom to move in with us. And when we did that, the roof we had was no longer being manufactured. So we were forced to re-roof our entire house so that the roof could continue in one kind. And this was when I was much younger, so I feel his pain. But when it comes to shingle roofs and metal roofs, from my research, as I've said, I'm not an expert, but I can read. Metal roofs are not necessarily safer. They last longer. You can even get lesser grades of metal to keep the cost down. You can get higher grades of shingles that will protect just as well as a metal roof, a good one. So that's just my 2 cents. I empathize with him. I've been there, and it is not fun. But I think if we approve this, then a big can of worms has been opened for the city.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the audience would like to speak on this? If not, we'll go to Zoom. Barbara, we have someone on Zoom?
The person lowered their hand.
What?
They lowered their hand.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Old, this will be your opportunity to come back up if you want to respond to any issues raised by members from the public or the council or our staff.
I don't want to be a stick in the mud, okay? I just want to get my house roofed, a metal roof. That's what I like to get done. You know, it's going to last me, hopefully, till, hey, I'll be 75, so if I get 20 years out of it, probably outlast me. Okay. The detached garage is far enough away from the house where a lot of people don't even think it's a detached garage. It's 24 by 30, built 10 years ago, well constructed. It's got hurricane windows, doors, the whole 9 yards. If it needed to be roofed, I would get it roofed. I just don't see taking something that's perfectly good, you know, it's only 9 years old, which should last, again, people who I've had look at it say you should get another 10 years out of it. To tear that off, to put a metal roof on it, just to match the house. I don't see that. If it needed one, you know, then I could say, yes, it's got to match the house. But it doesn't need one. I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Staff, you have your final summation?
Staff has recommended denial based on that we feel it doesn't meet the board criteria for determining variances. Certainly if council does, then that would be part of your decision. If your decision is to grant a variance, staff, again, will recommend a condition of approval that the roof colors be similar.
All right, thank you so much. board deliberation. I just want to say a couple of things here on this variance. Now, I realize the house was built in '89. It was re-roofed in 2002. Now, the detached garage was built in 2013. That means this roof is 11 years younger than the house. So, and I understand what the LDC allows or doesn't allow, and what the code is there for. You know, I get concerned when you have such a younger roof on the detached piece of property there from the house, that there's 11 years difference. And, you know, nowadays, we've heard that before here. The insurance companies are telling people to replace their roof after 15 or 20 years. So, you know, the house is, what is it, 21 or almost 22 years, 21 years, the roof on that. Mm-hmm. So, and then the detached part is just 11 years old. So, you know, I can feel his pain about that because, you know, you're going through this about the roof and all that. I just had a metal roof put on our house. It cost me a lot of money, but, you know, it's something that we wanted. I didn't want to go back with shingles, and I understand our code says, you know, what you have, if you decide to go above that and do something different, then you must match your accessory structure if it's over 501 square feet. Having said all that, I know Councilman Dodd was on the P&Z at the time in 2013 when this structure was originally built, and they approved it. And I believe the initial intent of the code was to, if you have a home and then you decide to build an accessory structure over so many square feet, that you would then be required to match the roof pitch and everything of your home and the material on the roof. And I think that was really the intent of the code, is to, when you build it, it has to be done. You know, this 11 years kind of takes me back a little bit, the difference in the roof, that have to force somebody into putting on a roof that's only 11 years old. But again, like I said, I do understand the code, so I'm at a quandary right now.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I make a motion to approve the variance at whatever color he wants, because like I said, his wife's not here, and I don't want him committing to a color.
So what's the motion to?
To approve the variance with what he proposed.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, the discussion comes before us about this, and, you know, I love hearing this phrase, well, I don't live in an HOA. Why are you telling me what roof I can put on my house? And we're not. You can put any roof you want on your house. But when you've built an accessory structure, you've now tied yourself to that structure. We're not saying you can't replace your roof. We're saying that it has to match, as was the requirement when building the accessory structure. That's not the friendly answer, but sometimes the code's not friendly, and I'm more concerned now that I want to do this, but I'm more concerned with the larger picture, and the larger picture is not about this gentleman, it's about future decisions, and I think we have to make the decision based on the code.
All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and second Bob's motion just for further discussion.
Oh, you're looking at me. Now you put me on the P&Z again, so...
I'm looking this way, Ed.
Well, you know, I've gyrated back and forth. I said a little while ago that I'm inclined to approve the variance, and then I went back and took a look at the information that Dory passed us on the condition under the items we're supposed to consider when we approve a variance. And quite frankly, she's 100% correct. None of these actually apply to this variance. I mean, it's not a special condition. It's not. It's not. You know, it's because of property values and structure, and we have this thing there. So based on the actual legal things we're supposed to consider when we do this, then I probably will vote no on the motion that's been applied.
I think we need to call a vote, Mr. Vice Mayor.
So we'll let it fall where it may, right? Okay, so we've had our discussion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
I think you have to do a call.
roll call,
Roll
sorry.
call.
Yeah, sorry. ma'am.
Councilmember Dodd?
No.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
No.
And Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
It's a no vote, right?
The motion fails.
Motion failed, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Is there a second motion?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to deny this variance, as it's stated.
All right, so we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Mr. Dodd.
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion?
I think if I would just say one more time, this isn't about doing the friendly thing. They didn't put us up here to make friendly decisions about the code. They put us up here to follow code. And if we don't follow the code, we put our staff in a situation. Our staff has recommended, and very rarely do we go against staff recommendation. I can remember one time on a variance we approved, but there were extenuating circumstances beyond their control. There are not extenuating circumstances beyond the applicant's control. So I think this is the right thing, even though it's not the fun, nice thing.
But again, the only reason we're in this quandary is because he sought out an answer. If he just went and applied, it would have been done, so.
Can't put that rabbit back in the hat.
Right, I know you can't, but I feel for the gentleman, if he wants to do the metal roof, now he's got to do the other roof, which is actually only 9 years old.
Right.
It's not 11. He's going to have to do that as well, so.
I agree.
All right, so,
Roll call.
roll call.
Okay, Councilmember McPartlin?
No.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
That motion carries.
All right, we tried. All right, where are we at, Council?
I think we made it
back
to
Approval of minutes, regular meeting.
you're going to adjourn the.
Okay.
Adjourn.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and adjourn the Board of Adjustment meeting and reconvene the City Council meeting. Next thing on the agenda for City Council meeting is public input. Anything that's not on the agenda? Anybody from the public wish to speak? Everybody's tired? Do we have anyone on Zoom wish to speak, Barbara?
I have 2 people with their hand raised.
All right, let's go with the first one.
Mr. McGinn?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have 5 items that don't require any serious discussion that I wanted to get on the record. And after the last one, I think I can do these in 5 minutes, a minute apiece. But it was really interesting to listen to the last one. My first item is called long-range planning. I believe, I've always been an advocate of long-range planning, and I believe in succession planning. And there are some positions within the staff and the council that absolutely require education, skill, and expertise that you don't learn on the job quickly. We shouldn't count on short-term learning as you go for these positions. And the positions I've outlined are financial director or manager, the city manager, and Jeanette, the city clerk, the 3 staff positions. I think that the council, in not providing for an assistant city manager and possibly backup for Mr. Kilgore, are being short-sighted, and I just want to go on record as that there's no decision to be made tonight. My second item is continuity and teamwork, and it's regard to city council. We have an election coming up, and in the past 5 years, I've seen we've had the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm here to endorse a concept, not a person tonight, because I can't do that. We're fortunate to have 5 great persons following a pretty bad situation a couple of years ago, and the results of the best of breed and show that we've had have indicated that we've made a lot of progress. For that reason, we need to replace 2 out of 5 at this election in order to maintain that excellence. and the outcome for the coming years. We must have trained, skilled.
Mr. McGinn,
Yes.
we're not going to be doing politicking in here, so if you have something.
Vice Mayor Jones, I'm not going to recommend anybody. It's a concept that has nothing to do, I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm just talking about what needs to be, what we need to think about for the council. All
Right, but we're not going to be talking about who should be up here, who shouldn't be there, in any context like that. So if you have something else other than that, dealing with political stuff there, you're more than welcome to proceed.
Yes, I do. My other subject is what I would call missionary work. After the last year or two, I think we should be committed to attending county and district meetings, and possibly set up a committee with residents plus a staff member and a councilman to visit the county meetings and some of the SDIC and the MPO, and be proactive in that support. I've listened to what everybody said, and I think that we should step forward and try and become more involved and keep our eye on the ball for what's happening in the county. That's just a statement of fact.
Yes, sir. Just a point I want to make there. Some of those things that you're talking about, those boards and the county commission meeting and all of those, our members do attend those. We're assigned to those, and each one of us go to those particular meetings throughout the county, whether it's the MPO, the county commission, the beach and shoreline, children's services advisory, all of those. We're a part of it.
I understand that, Vice Mayor. It wasn't an admonishment. I just think we could reach further. That's all. And the last one I want to mention is an advisement. It doesn't have to do with the council directly, and that's the CDD that's coming up for vote in the county. It's important that the public hearing be attended and people understand the ramifications of what that CDD is going to do. And I wanted to get on the record that before that county commission votes on it, people need to realize how serious that concept can be. I've been personally involved twice with it, and I really want to just call your attention to the fact that we need to look at it as a city because it's going to affect us in the future. Thank you. That's all I have, and it was a lot less than the roof discussion. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And for edification purposes, the county was speaking about the CDD this morning. There was something on the agenda, so the city manager, myself, and Mr. McPartland was there, and I think they put it to another date. I wrote that down somewhere.
October 18th.
It's October 18th at the county commission chambers at 9 a.m. October 18th. That's where the county will be discussing for the CDD. All right. Where are we? Anyone else? Mark, we have someone else on Zoom?
Mr. Cox, you're
Okay.
unmuted.
Yes. Go ahead. Mr. Cox, are you on? Does he have audio?
I see him unmuted, but I don't hear any sound or see any sound.
All right. Well, if we can't hear him, we'll go ahead and move on from now. So, is there?
Let me try again.
There you go. We can hear you
Is
now.
that
Thank
better?
you.
Okay. I appreciate that. I got three very quick comments, if I can do that.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate the time you're giving me here. The first concerns the very early presentation and proclamation dealing with the Constitution. I'd like to recommend to folks, if they haven't already read it, a wonderful book by a fellow called Tom Ricks called First Principles that explains how we got the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and how we go back into Greek and Roman history. It is a fascinating book, and anybody who wants to really go into some depth on how we got where, how do we get where we are, that's the book to read. The second topic I want to raise is the quality of life surveys that were done. I am delighted to see that the city is paying attention to these kind of surveys that are really helpful in determining the bigger agendas of of the council, of the community. And I commend the city for having these quality of life, getting these quality of life surveys done. The third thing I want to say is I want to thank the council for moving the approval of the annexation to December. We really appreciate that. This is a big issue, a big and complex issue, and it needs some real expertise to guide us through this process. And it's no aspersions on the present community development team. I really think you're going to look to some expertise outside to help you go through it. It is a big project. We need a consultant who can help you do that. We need a good agreement similar to the agreements that have been done in the communities that we listed in our letter. And I'm delighted that we're going to have some more discussion between now and December on this big topic. I thank you. Good night.
All right, thank you so much, sir. All right, anyone else on Zoom? All right, hearing none. We'll go ahead and move to the consent agenda. We'll go ahead, obviously we added at the beginning of the meeting here an addition to the consent agenda. Item number 11K was added. Council, what's your pleasure?
Move approval of consent agenda 11A through K.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion on this? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Nunn,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
and Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
No.
Unfinished business.
New business.
14B.
Oh, yeah, okay. So we don't have any unfinished business, correct? Okay, next we'll move on to new business. First item is resolution number R-22-19, establishing new cemetery rates for in-ground lots, remains, lots, for all of the niches and all the services. Mr. Nunn, do you need to read that into the record, or we don't?
Technically, you don't have to read resolution, but it's been the council's preference to do it. I'll do it.
Okay, read it into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, repealing resolution number R-8-27 relating to municipal cemetery rates, establishing new cemetery rates for in-ground lots, cremain lots, columbarium niches, personnel service, corner markers, and niche vases and rings, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Council?
I'll move approval of resolution number R-22-19.
Second.
All right, I have a couple of questions before we move forward on this one. Where it says, I think vase and rings for niches, open paren, closed paren at market price. We show a rate of $139 on the original sheet, but on this one, on the previous rate, as added by resolution 08-22, we show cost, whatever the cost is to the city versus $139, what we're showing now. So should we show the cost here instead of cost versus $139? Because everything is going up, and we don't know if we put $139 in there, then we're going to be held to that $139, but it may cost us $160.
And I agree. Go ahead. Brian has an answer, and there is one correction while he's coming to the podium. Under internment rates, it should say weekdays after 3 p.m. instead of weekdays 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on page 212.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. In regards to the vase and ring for niches, we include a price in there, so when we're providing this document with the resolution to members who are interested, the current rate is $139. However, as that continues to increase, we will make the adjustment and show the price that is increased too. So that's why we included in parentheses that it's going to be at the market price.
All right, very good. I like that. I figured as much, but when you see the numbers there, and before we just showed cost in that column to reflect what the cost it was going to be on the city to get that. So, What was the other change there, Mr. Pollard?
So if you go down to section internment rates, it says weekdays 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. The additional charge is only if it's after 3 p.m.
Right, and then we also have, didn't we say we weren't gonna be doing on holidays? But
That
we
was
have
in the-
holidays listed here?
That was in the ordinance, in the rules in the ordinance, that
Right.
the holidays, internments would not be done on Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day. It's not in the rate resolution, it's actually in the ordinance as part of the rules.
Okay.
So, yeah, correct. So to answer your question, so there are other holidays that we will do interments and disinterments.
Okay.
So that is pertaining to those additional holidays.
Just for clarity and understanding, shouldn't it be a little clearer that these are additional fees for those situations specifically? I think anybody looking at it would assume the internment's gonna cost them $350.
That's only after
Correct.
that time frame.
So I think maybe some clarification where it says fee, maybe additional fees or something, so people understand that after 3 p.m., they're going to pay an additional fee for that.
We can make a change in the title.
I think it would be just be
I
for
agree.
clarity's sake. In other words, people are going to assume they can only bury somebody after 3 p.m. and they're gonna have to pay $350 or something. I just, clarity.
We will make that change and get it back to you, and something to the additional fees based on additional services or times, something of that
Right.
nature. Because what we did with this new rate, just for the public's edification, we used to have a way below market rate, but then on top of that, we charged a fee to mark out. We charged fees for this, every little thing. So you were paying $1,000 or $2,000 for a lot, then all of a sudden you had another $500, $600 worth of fees added on. We incorporated all those additional fees, except for the after-hour fee, a holiday fee, into the one rate for this, so the family wasn't caught off guard that there was all these additional fees. So I think it makes that part clear, but I do agree with Councilmember Nunn. We can clarify that this is additional fees because of these additional circumstances.
Right, and the other part with that is, you know, people, it's not like 10 years or 20 years you get to do it, and this cost gets to handle all the care for that. We're providing perpetual care for these prices. So just want to put that out there.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Mr. Dodd?
Okay, I just picked up on what Councilmember Nunn said a minute ago about the rings, the vase and ring and for the niches. Typically, when you look at it at market price, they don't put a dollar amount. It's market price. And when I went back and looked at that again, I read that as saying, well, vices, rings for niches at market price, and then 139, well, that's market price. But it doesn't say as of this date or currently or something like that with that dollar amount. It seems to me that it needs to be clearer that when somebody looks at this and they come in a year and a half from now and you say 160, they're going to say, wait a minute, it says 139 here.
Correct, and
Yeah.
so we'll make that adjustment as well.
Yeah.
Under rates, we'll put at market price, and then we'll just, our additional documentation that we provide, to the residents that come in or non-residents that
Or
come in.
you could just use the word
We'll clarify.
currently, $139, or $139 as of this date, or something like that
Or
in
just
there.
put cost on there, period, whatever the cost is at the time, so.
Yeah.
I think it'd be better if we just put market price, just like when you go to a restaurant and you order a
Restaurant,
steak,
yeah.
they don't tell you it's $57, they tell
Right.
you market price.
Yeah. They want you to order, so
And
they can tell you
when
how
they
much
come
it
to
is.
sign the
Yeah.
documents, they'll be told their final fee of
Right,
what they
yeah.
have to pay.
But yeah, I just don't want to see the 139 there and 6 months
I
down the
can
road,
appreciate
we
that.
have a lot more than that, so.
But I
We
like
can
this.
make those changes, I'm okay with that.
So just out of clarity's sake, if it changes 139, are you gonna come back to us with a new resolution?
No.
Or no?
We would have to.
Okay, so you would have to,
So
which is
we'll
what I
change it
thought.
to at market price.
Which is what I thought was the answer, then
Correct.
honestly, at market price doesn't need to be there, because you're going to have a new updated list every time you bring a resolution back to change the price.
No, what we're
You
saying
don't
is
wanna
we're
come
gonna
back
put
to
market price, and that price will always
No, no.
fluctuate.
Okay,
You
so
put market-
if you
Take
put
the
market price,
139 out.
it doesn't have to come back to resolution?
That's correct.
Right. Okay, beautiful, I like that.
Right, you don't want to do that.
Market
Back
price
to
is
us.
better.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You got me lost.
I guess it's,
Okay.
it's funny, I probably should have brought it up before, but it used to be when I'd buy a cemetery plot, I'd go deal with Jeanette in the clerk's office. But now when I come to complain about pickleball or I want to buy a grave, I got to go to Leisure Services.
Well, It's like a park.
Well, being buried's leisure.
Well, he can handle it anyway. Brian's a good guy. He can handle it. Right,
If you
Brian?
want, we can let Jeanette take it back over, I'm sure.
Well, I know Jeanette's awful happy giving this portion up, so.
All right, so do we have any further discussion on this, gentlemen?
I'm ready.
Do
Call
we
the
have
question.
anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Do we have anyone on Zoom who would like to speak on it? Okay,
No,
Council,
sir.
you make a motion?
Yeah, we got a motion.
We do have a
Motion
motion and a second?
Call
All
the
right,
question.
let's call the vote.
Roll call.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item B, authorize the revocation of selection of errands companies. Mr. Carlisle.
So this is another one of those inflationary problems we run into, just like we did with the hangars. We received a $35,000 Florida Department of Transportation grant. The tenant was going to supply a private match of $35,000 for a total of $70,000 for office renovations for the flight school and Hangar C at the Sebastian Municipal Airport. We were not able to get it. Jeff's here to give you the exact numbers, but I think the closest we got was like $170,000. The tenant would have to cover those additional costs. He did not feel comfortable covering those additional costs, so we'd like to terminate the agreement with negotiations with Aaron's companies for the design of the office space at Hangar C, and we will try to go out and rebid that. And if it doesn't come back successful, then we will ask the applicant the tenant to fund those different improvements.
Council, any discussion on
I
that?
move approval of, the revocation of RFQ 2204.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second? We have a motion and a second by Mr. McPartlin. I'll say call the vote. Jeanette?
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item C, resolution number R-22-13, FAA Airport Improvement Project Grant, number 3-12, blah, blah, all those numbers. Mr. Carlisle.
You would like to read the resolution?
Sorry, Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Sebastian, in River County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute an airport improvement project grant agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration for funding the design cost of X26SOG 3-12-0145-020-2022, design runway 0523 rehabilitation at the Sebastian Municipal Airport, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Council?
Move approval of
resolution number
2213.
R-22-13.
Mr. McPartlin made the motion. Mr. Dodd, your second? All right, Mr. Dodd, second. All the vote, Jeanette?
Do we want to let the city manager have anything down?
I just think it's a great opportunity to get a FAA cost of $197,000 and the state cost of $10,945, and the project cost is $218,000, which means the city will only be putting up 5% of this money at $10,945. So thank you, Mr. Sabo, for
Yeah,
making
and that's all DST?
No, that'll be DST funds, yes.
Right,
Awesome.
okay. Very good. All right, call the vote.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, item D, authorize CSA number 9 with Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering Incorporated. Provide professional engineering services relative to the design rehabilitation of runway 5-23 at Sebastian Municipal Airport in the amount of $218,893. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, members of council, this is utilizing those funds. That runway is far beyond or very close to its useful lifespan. It's been recommended that that runway be rehabbed, and that's how we got the funds. And this is the first step in doing the design, and then we'll go out to bid with those construction documents and rehab that runway. So we'd ask council to approve the agreement with Infrastructure Technologies and ICE and have them do the design work for that.
Is that the runway that goes from the southwest to the northeast, or is it more east to west?
So it's the one that runs from this side of the shade hangars, the first runway you come across. So it runs southeast to north.
The airport manager.
5 degrees one way, 230.
Oh, okay, I got my answer back there. I don't need your answer.
Southwest.
Goes this way.
Goes that way.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move to approve CSA 9 work services agreement.
You have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Dodd. Any further discussion? Jeanette, call the roll.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
You know, so I'm so messed up here. Sometimes I say Jeanette, sometimes I say Madam Clerk, sometimes
It's okay,
I don't
Mr.
know.
Vice Mayor.
You understand, right?
Yes, I do.
That's the way my brain works, I'm sorry. All right, city attorney matters.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just really quickly, just let you know that we're moving forward. I think it was mentioned earlier with negotiations. I know we're scheduled with the police, and of course their contract already was ratified, not ratified, but they voted in IUPA. So IUPA will be at the table, and that's scheduled for on the 15th of September at 9 o'clock. Followed the next week at 1:30, we'll be dealing with the general employees. That contract has not yet worked its way through PERC. We're still waiting for PERC to enter its final opinion. Once they do so, then we'll go to the election, and then they'll decide. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager.
I don't have anything unless you have questions for me.
All right, thank you, sir. City Clerk, you gotta have something this time, come on.
No.
Okay. Now we'll move on to council matters. Mr. Dodd.
Okay, it's not because you're chairing this meeting tonight, but I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about, so.
We're closing the meeting now then. No.
Okay, first of all, I just want to reiterate a very interesting thing I heard, and I'm sure we all heard this, and hopefully heard it well, at the budget review meeting. One of the budget review committee members referenced, based on one of the charts that Mr. Kilgore had shown them, that we have 17 years in Sebastian in which the current year, the new millage rate for the next fiscal year was less than the millage rate for the prior fiscal year. It doesn't mean we didn't increase taxes, but what it meant was that that our millage rate increased at a rate less than the previous year's millage rate. The interesting thing about that is that in that 17 years, the city's grown quite a bit. Our staff's grown, our commitments have grown, the stuff that we're required to do has grown, and we finance that out of new construction. I want that kind of sink into people who don't think that annexing a piece of property and having new construction is beneficial to the finances of the city. Because for 17 years, we financed the city's growth out of new construction, not out of increasing the millage rate every year more and more and more and more. So it's not only very physically conservative on the part of our financial staff and the city managers that have been in play for that 17 years and the city councils, it also is a good indication that we're not making a mistake when we look at some of these things that we're looking at doing, because that's the way we finance the growth in the city. Second thing is that we saw the presentation earlier today about the questionnaire, the survey that went out to the citizens, okay? And I would like to approach the council about establishing some workshops or a workshop to begin the strategic planning process, so that what has happened with the process that the city manager's been going through is he's developed metrics by which the city staff is operating, and they've done the survey of the citizens to get information. Well, now, based on that survey, we have what we need to sit down as a council, and this will probably be done after the election as opposed to before the election, but to sit down as a council and to develop a series of strategic statements that go into the construction of a strategic plan. And of course, for those people who have done strategic planning in the past, the mission statement drives the objectives that the council does, and then those drive the city managers driving those things into the city staff to accomplish those. And I think it's time we do that. The last time that was done, I think, was somewhere around 2008 or 2007. I think there were meetings at at the yacht club or someplace in which the council got together with the citizens. So I'd kind of like to get a consensus of the council as to whether we should ask the city manager to begin the process of setting that up, and maybe even invite 2 or 3 members from the Chamber of Commerce and 2 or 3 members at large from the citizenry to join the council as part of the workshop to bring in input from outside the council as part of the time we do that. But is there a consensus that we should try to do that, or can we get a consensus?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, it makes sense to me, but I'd like to see the stormwater plan, because 70% of the citizens, drainage was their top issue in what they replied.
Yeah, I'm very excited about seeing the stormwater plan too, because quite frankly, our stormwater system is abysmal. I hate to use that word, but it is. It's abysmal, and we have so much to do there. All right, the last thing, the city attorney received communication from the county attorney, and from the attorney that represents the developer of Liberty Park, in the process of putting together a CDD. And he was queried as to whether there was things that the city would like to discuss related to that project. I think that our Liberty Park is going to be the tipping point. It's going to be kind of like what happens with what's happening with the climate right now. Liberty Park is going to tip the problems that we're having with Schumann and Barber over the point where it's fixable without a major rework on that area. And it's going to be the result of Liberty Park and the transportation that comes out of there. So I would kind of like to see, I don't know, maybe the council giving the city manager an opportunity to blame the council for what he wants to do anyway, probably, and have the council and the attorney draft in response to the information request from their attorney to him, draft a response back that said that we believe that Liberty Park CDD or the county using transportation impact funds, which we all know they collect transportation impact funds, but they don't use them up here. Use transportation impact funds and take on the responsibility of correcting the problems that are going to occur at Barber and Schumann as a result of that impact flow from there. I don't even know, I tried to find out today, and I haven't seen the detailed stuff on Liberty Park from 4 years ago or so when it was approved, but I don't know there was ever a traffic impact study done that includes the streets in Sebastian on the Liberty Park thing, and it should include those streets. There is a transportation impact on that. So I would like to ask the consensus of the council to provide the city manager and the city attorney an opportunity to respond back to that letter and indicate that we feel like that is something that needs to be corrected as part of that CDD being developed and from the county as well as the owner of the CDD.
Right. I think that development was approved in 2008. So it's already approved and it's out there. Whether it becomes a CDD or stays the way it is, if they did a traffic impact study, then they need to do another one, when this thing gets ready to get started, before they get started, do another traffic impact study, because those people are going to be using our roads, and we need to have some of that traffic impact money to maintain our streets.
Well, I'm going to repeat what I heard that was said today at the county commission meeting. Right now, they have the power in order to get what we need in the development agreement for the CDD, whether it means the county kicks in money from their transportation impact fees or whether it means they expect it from the CDD. They're in the process of discussing that. So just like we were told by the county commission that we have the power on the annexation, they have the power on this. And if we don't put our 2 cents in, we're going to come back a year and a half from now when somebody says that the city of Sebastian has to spend $1.5 million fixing that intersection, and we're going to come back kicking ourselves for why didn't we go after that money at the time that they had the power to do that.
Right, or any other roads in our city that we're going to be impacted by all of those residents down there. So yes, I agree with you. We need to draft up something to send to them so that we can get some of that traffic impact money for the city.
Is any other thoughts?
Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right.
There's a lot of things, impacting that as well. I thought you were going to start bringing up the other letter that we got from Fellsmere.
That's a different story.
Right.
Because they're asking, you know, we're being told that we need to limit construction in the, limit density in the new area to 2 houses per acre. Fellsmere is now limited to 2 houses per acre, and they're asking us to give them an opportunity to go higher.
Right.
So, I mean, there's lots of things that are rolling around that, but right now, we're still working on that agreement with the annexation, and we're still working on that process. But my big concern is that Liberty Park is gonna go through the approval process in October. And it is an opportunity now for us to get our 2 cents in there to try to make sure that we can get some support from the county and from the developer of Liberty Park through the CDD. I don't know, for example, if the county is giving their transportation impact money back to the CDD. I really don't know that, because I haven't seen any documents that actually outline how that works. So I don't know what the agreement between the county and the developer is for the approval of the CDD. I heard today that CDDs can't do fire stations, but they do. I mean, there are CDDs in the city, in the state. Reedy Creek is the most, well, except the governor took it away from them, but Reedy Creek is the most pertinent one. Reedy Creek had not only their own fire department, they had their own street crews, their own maintenance crews, their own stormwater crews, their own everything. And that was basically a basic CDD in Reedy Creek. So there is the opportunity for them to do all that stuff. So I would like for the council to ask the city manager and city attorney to kind of respond with that and try to see if they can't get something started in that conversation.
You understand where we are, Mr. Carlisle?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. I wouldn't have brought it up if he and I hadn't talked about it, so.
No, that's all right. We had a conversation. So, is that it for you, sir?
I just want to thank, honestly, I want to thank the city staff for the work that they're putting in on this annexation agreement. They're really working very hard with our outside attorney, Mr. Gugelman, and he's being a very positive force in doing this. And I want to thank them for the work that they're doing in this. They're doing everything they can to protect the citizens of Sebastian, and at the same time to protect the owner of the property. And that's exactly what we need in that agreement, is the protections for both. And I think a lot of people, there's an awful lot of talk about the fact that we don't know what we're doing, but I think they do, and I think they're doing a great job in working through this process.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I don't have anything else for now. Mr. McPartland?
Well, I guess just an update, because I do sit, I'm the representative on the Indian River County Veterans Council, and we were able to help that elderly lady who lives on Main Street. I got her recent bill, and we paid that water bill through the Veterans Council. And they were also, because they were looking at her roof, because her homeowner's insurance is up there at $6,000. So they work also with Habitat for Humanity. So Habitat for Humanity is looking at if they could possibly redo her roof, because the Veterans Council has money, but Habitat for Humanity also has that program where they can assist people that are on fixed or low income for improvements for their house. And then they're going to be installing grab bars in her bathroom at no cost to her for her own safety. And again, she's 91 years old, lives by herself, and this way she can continue to live in her house, which is what she ultimately wants to do. So the Veterans Council does a fantastic job. And again, any veteran, they assist. So any problems that they're facing. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nunn?
I would like to piggyback on Mr. McPartland's comment. I actually worked with the Veterans Council about a week and a half ago to help a veteran with 2 months of rent. So they definitely are there to help out. They have money to help out, so that's important. Somebody said to me the other day, we were talking about DST funds, and they said, oh, the tax money's tax money's tax money. And I just want to, for people that don't understand what DST funds, they're tax revenue for sales tax. So, when you pay your rent and mortgage, it goes to your landlord, whatever, and to the bank. When you go out shopping, you're paying sales tax on everything. Well, the beauty of sales tax is all these tourists pay sales tax too. All these other people that are coming to our area. So yes, DST is tax money, but it's not tax money that you're paying on your normal things different than anybody else, but it won't go up for you. But I just want people to understand that money comes from sales tax, which is covered for all tourism and all those other things. So that's why that money has went up, why it's done so well. If people hear DST funds and don't always understand it, it's not your normal tax money. Yes, you are paying sales tax on everything you buy, but so is everybody else that comes to this beautiful city. So that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you, sir. There being no further business before this council, this meeting's adjourned. Time to go eat.